Well, I thought those European leagues were never going to end. They are over now. And now we move forward. I mean, immediately we shift focus to our friends in Europe, to what's going to happen Euro 2024, which is going to start there mid-June. And for us here in the Americas, with the Copa America, which will begin for the United States June 23rd. Starts a little bit before that, and it'll be here before we know it. We were just saying 50 days, 100 days. Buckle up, folks. It is here, and it is going to be a rocket ship. It is going to start. It is going to end. The Copa America is a sprint of a tournament. 16 teams. In comparison, the Euros has 24. In comparison, the World Cup had 32, soon to have 48. 16 teams. So, don't get too comfortable. And we'll have a lot of answers about this U.S. men's national team. We'll have a lot of answers to what the World Cup is going to look like. As we've said before here, it's kind of like a dress rehearsal, using many of the similar stadiums, many of the similar teams, certainly in the Americas, and that'll be in 2 years. In between, you have the Club World Cup. All eyes are here in the United States. Everyone wants a piece of the pie, and for good reason. This is where the money is at. Not because we are the biggest soccer country. We're just the biggest, the most money, 350 million Americans. If you'd say 5% of that were into soccer, which is what I think the number is, maybe a little higher, that's a lot of people. So here we go. The roster has been announced. And we're going to break it all down. And I'm going to give you what I think is going to be the starting 11 based on what I think. But more importantly, how I think Gregg Berhalter is going to look at that. We're going to see it here today on the Soccer OG. Check out the Soccer OG podcast where all podcasts are available. We have a great one there where I spoke to Walker Zimmerman about his World Cup experience and what he's doing looking forward. We have a new one which will focus on this roster and what lies ahead for this group. And of course, like and subscribe us here. Don't want to take up too much of your time. We're going to get through this because I know there's a lot of information out there and you guys want to absorb it. So the 26-man roster has been announced. What about 26 as opposed to 23? In a perfect world, 23 is the right number. 20 players 24, 25, and 26 are not going to play. But I think I am all right with it in the sense, you get 3 guys that you get that phone call to say you're going to this dream tournament. And I think that's good. I believe having those guys in the locker room and training is very valuable. It's not very valuable. It is valuable. I mean, those guys know where they stand, but this is a good practice as to where they may want to go from this. You bring guys that can help you in a lot of ways. I'm a big believer in the intangibles. I know some of you are not, but I speak to so many coaches. And when it comes to players that help you train effectively and messaging and get in the ears of maybe some other players, all the coaches tell me the same thing. They do welcome that. I also think in such a demanding year, for that very reason, our American players have put a lot of tread on the tires, with a couple exceptions. And the season ends and they're going to go, boom, right into the international duty, something they didn't have to do last summer. Something they won't really have to do next summer, but the year after that. So this is a few extra players, not bad in a year like 2024. I mean, in many ways, we're still catching up from COVID and the schedule being squished in, right? I mean, it has been an absolute just burden on these guys. You have to respect what they do in order to represent their country. And we're very proud of our group. They are coming off of so far a successful 2024, winning the Nations League, beating Mexico comfortably again, and showing that they get the results when they're at home. And they'll be at home here in 2024. They'll be at home at the 2026 World Cup. Quick look at the schedule before we get into the details here. June the 8th, the United States will take on Colombia in Landover, Maryland. That should be a good one. We'll look forward to that. June the 12th, they'll take on Brazil in Orlando. We've spoken about these games before. This is very valuable matchups against two teams that they could potentially play. We assume the U.S. get through the group, and they'll face either Brazil or Colombia in the quarterfinal. And if they get through there, they'll face probably Brazil or Colombia in the semis, if everything goes according to the betting odds. The United States will kick off their Copa America June the 23rd against Bolivia in Arlington, Texas. then they have games against Panama and Uruguay. I expect to see the promotion starting to pick up from U.S. Soccer, from Fox, from all the broadcast and partners out there, so that the Copa America gets the attention of many soccer fans that may not have tuned in otherwise. Now, the way they will tune in more is if the U.S., just like in 2016, navigate through this tournament, which I believe they will. I think they have a really good shot to win their group, and it all comes down to that quarterfinal. They need to win that quarterfinal. They get to a semifinal and say, beat Brazil or Colombia along to that semi, that's a successful tournament. But once you're in a semifinal, everything is within reach. So that is what lies ahead for the U.S. I'm okay with the 26, and I love what they've done in the prep. Although Brazil and Colombia were looking for opponents, everyone kind of got the similar build-up towards this. The 26-player roster, less and less surprises as we've gone along here. And the big concern coming in, because I'm going to focus and I'm going to give you my projected starting 11, the way I think Gregg Berhalter is going to build it. And there are 4 key players for the U.S. that would normally start here, and we have to figure if they will continue to start because of it. And most of them, I think, will. There are some injury concerns, too, that we have to navigate around. So Matt Turner, who has played a couple games since February. Gio Reyna, you can count the minutes he's played at Nottingham Forest. And really in the last game of the year where Nottingham Forest were essentially safe, just sat and watched. Tim Ream has barely played for Fulham. I can't imagine he remains with that club moving forward. If he still wants to play, we are indebted to Tim Ream, because when we needed a center back the most at the 2022 World Cup, he came through and was excellent. He is a beautiful passing center. He might still start here, as he started in the Nations League game against Mexico. But you've got to really start looking towards an alternative, and I think this is a great opportunity for Gregg Berhalter to do that. And then Tyler Adams, who's missed most of the back end of the season, came back hastily perhaps, played for the U.S., played some for Bournemouth, came a little bit for Bournemouth. We hear he's being held out as a precaution. So there we go. So those are the big 4, and those are 4 big names. So we'll see where it goes. Now, I have broken it all down, and I'm excited to show you this, because I know a lot of people have shown it. And some people have suggested, because of the big one with the 11 is no Sergiño Dest. He is a massive hole to fill, because you build so much around him. And now, how do you approach it? Do you play with 3 center backs? Possibly, and then the 2 wing backs. I don't hate that idea. Actually, the thing is, Gregg Berhalter hasn't really done it, and there might be a solution where he doesn't have to do that. Because you bring in that center back, you got to pull somebody out from the midfield, and we have a good midfield. We don't really want to do that. But there's some midfielders that we can move out wide. So I wouldn't be shocked if that happens. I am going to go with the 4-3-3 that Gregg Berhalter certainly likes to use. The big question is, how do you replace Sergiño Dest? The candidates are Joe Scally, and then moving someone like Tim Weah and Weston McKennie into that position. Perhaps some other alternatives, Tyler Adams as well. Here is my starting 11, and there you go. I believe Weston McKennie is going to be the right back, and it allows you to play with those 3 midfielders in there. We'll get to that here in a moment. Chris Richards and Cameron Carter-Vickers is our best pairing centrally. Cameron Carter-Vickers battling with injury concerns, but he finished strong with Celtic, won everything with Celtic, so he's coming in with confidence. I believe Richards and Carter-Vickers are a really nice pairing because they complement each other. Richards is the guy who he's getting better as a passer. He's got to fill that Tim Ream role, right? And Carter-Vickers is going to be that uncompromising hard man who will be tough to beat. That is the best pairing we have, and I think that's the pairing that Gregg Berhalter is going to go with it, even though we haven't seen a lot of CCV coming up to it. And Chris Richards has to become that leader. He's had a great season at Crystal Palace. Can we see him take it? Jedi Robinson, no question about him at left back. Tyler Adams will hold down the midfield. Yunus Musa on the right. Gio Reyna on the left, and up front, Tim Weah, Christian Pulisic, and it's going to be Haji Wright. We'll get to that. I want to get to the defenders first. Matt Turner, it is what it is. There are no alternatives. There are no alternatives goalkeeping. We need to find that alternative. Matt Turner, though, despite not playing, and this applies to Gio Reyna, has been very good for us. We got to keep him in a safe area, but as a good shot stopper, he is going to be the guy until someone else puts their hand up, and we don't really see that happening right now. So Weston McKennie's the big one. And the reason I put him there is because that is where Gregg Berhalter went when Sergiño Dest was unavailable, when he was moving stuff around the Nations League. Weston McKennie popped up on there. We've got 4 really good midfielders. We want to get them all in this game. That's why I don't think Joe Scally is going to be an option here. It could be McKennie or Weah. I think it's going to be McKennie because that's who Gregg Berhalter went with. Jedi Robinson, by the way, on the left has had a superb, almost played every game for Fulham. One of the best left backs when you look at it analytically in the Premier League. And then CCV and Richards, we've got to kick the tire on these duos. But who else do you bring in? Ream? It's time to pivot away from that. It's time to pivot away. Richards, it's your time. You've got to be that leader defensively. He's done everything right, but we got to see a guy who really wants to attack that responsibility. He's still very young. But look, the Copa America is big, but the World Cup's bigger, and we can build that towards 2026. Tyler Adams missed a lot of games, but when he played for the U.S., scored that amazing goal, he's just, you talk, and I've spoken to many of his former coaches, in particular Chris Armas, who I spoke to him about a couple of weeks ago, and he just says, think about Tyler Adams that not many have, is that he will, I don't mean this literally, he will die on the field before he loses. He will never quit on a game, and we need that. Every team needs that. And you would think most players are like that, but they are not. Tyler Adams is a cut above as a player that will not take losing as an option. He doesn't. You talk to anyone who has dealt with Tyler Adams, that is his MO. Yunus Musa, who has had a good enough season for Milan, not great, but does so many good things as building up the play, can destroy some of the play and help Tyler Adams with that responsibility. And Gio Reyna, despite the horror show at Nottingham Forest, which I tell you, he's a young player, he has time, and Christian Pulisic found his club. And you could say this was a horror, just an awful loan move for Gio Reyna, which it was. But it wasn't a waste of time. He went to the Premier League. He got to see how a club battling relegation dealt with. He got to train there with some excellent players. He got to play against some and see that level of the play. That goes in the memory banks. Now, the window, the hour of the sand of the hourglass is starting to run for him to find the right club. He has proven that he can still excel even though he's not getting those minutes for the club, as we saw in the last 2 years representing the national team, going back to the Dortmund days where he wasn't playing a lot. So Gio Reyna, no-brainer. We'll see if he plays a little more reserved or a little bit more withdrawn, which I think he probably will as also. Although I think with McKennie moving back, he could be more of a 10 in many ways. Christian Pulisic on the left, Tim Weah on the right. That is as tradition. So I don't want to delve too much into it. I just don't want to mess that up. Christian Pulisic having the best year for an American in Europe ever, with the goals and the appearances for Milan and getting into the Champions League and getting back to the Champions League, finishing second. Excellent. The Serie A not quite done yet, so hopefully nothing happens there. By the way, we've said that in the past. He has really shed the injury concerns. Haji Wright. Flo Balogun came to the U.S. men's national team, and I can't definitively say this, but cut a deal. He says, if I come, I'm going to be the guy. U.S. Soccer says, sure. And they gave him time and time and time and time. He's had a mediocre season, but he's playing in Europe, which we should be happy about. And the ceiling is still very high. But those promises, I think, have worn out. And Haji Wright, who played 44 games for Coventry City, 16 goals, got into an FA Cup semifinal, started that game against Mexico, which on the roster was Ricardo Pepi. So to me, it says that Gregg Berhalter rates Haji Wright above that. Josh Sargent, we just don't know. So Haji Wright, to me, is going to start. I feel very strongly about that. I think Gregg Berhalter continues to see him as the guy when Flo Balogun has not produced. We're not giving up on Flo Balogun by any means, but I think Haji Wright starts. I think Haji Wright starts in the Copa America opener. Probably starts that game against Colombia on June the 8th. Enjoy it, folks. This is what we've been waiting for. It's going to be a fun ride. Enjoy the Copa. Enjoy the Euros. Make sure you get your sleep. Make sure you eat well and get your exercise in between. All right? Spend some time with your family if you can. I know that's going to be difficult. My heart races thinking about all the soccer I'm going to watch, but it's exciting and terrifying at the same time. Check out the Soccer OG podcast where all podcasts are available. We'll be back here to preview the Copa. We're all in, baby. Like and subscribe, of course. How could I forget? We'll see you very soon.